Worshipful Master, distinguished brethren and brethren all, Provincial Grand Orator speaking again. I'm a bit late with my presentation this month, but what with Easter and all, I'm sure you'll understand that I've been a little bit busy recently. Anyway, I do hope you like the background picture. I used to own one of these, and let me tell you the story behind it. You're very familiar with the fact, those of you who know me, that when I roll up in lodge, I always wear a dog collar, and there's a very good reason for that, which I'm about to explain. So, in my parish ministry in the past, I was for some years rector of Dartmoor, and realizing this was going to be quite a tough job, I decided that it was necessary to have appropriate transport. So I went out and bought one of these. This is a Suzuki TS250X, two-stroke, 250cc off-road bike, and it was absolutely perfect for riding around Dartmoor in all kinds of weathers and all kinds of terrain. And shortly after I bought it, and I was new to the parish, somebody said to me, "Oh, there's an old lady up the hill. You really should go and visit. She's been an important churchgoer in the past. She's not too active now, so I'm sure she'd appreciate a visit." So I got the gear on, rode up the hill, parked outside the old lady's house, and I was just walking around into the garden when I suddenly felt a whack across my shoulders. So for an inactive old lady, she was pretty active. And I turned round to see a little lady with an umbrella whacking me across the shoulders, saying, "We don't want any dirty, noisy bikers up round here." At which point I undid the collar of my jacket and said, "Well, actually, madam, I'm the new vicar." Her face was a picture, and you can see why I very seldom go anywhere without a dog collar, so there can be no misunderstanding. Well, spring is a time for many religious festivals. Things like Easter, of course, and Holi if you're a Hindu, Ramadan if you're a Muslim has been on recently, and these religious festivals, I thought I would tackle with this the question of Freemasonry and religion. That's something I'm often asked about. For those who are less familiar with me, when I roll up in lodge in a collar, people often express surprise, and they say things like, "Well, are religion and Freemasonry compatible? Is Freemasonry a religion? I thought the churches were opposed to Freemasonry," and so on. And so I thought I'd cover some of those points in this presentation here today. Now you can see why, when people enter a lodge, they sometimes think that Freemasonry might be a religion. After all, in a prominent place at every lodge meeting is the volume of the sacred law. In English lodges, that's usually, of course, the Bible, but it doesn't have to be. It could be the Quran, it could be the Torah, or indeed any sacred writing. The volume of the sacred law is not confined to one particular scripture. And then, of course, if you're unfamiliar with Masonic ceremonies, say on the night of your initiation, you might be a little bit surprised at how much God comes into it, although you are asked at the moment you enter the lodge about your belief in a supreme being. And of course, God gets mentioned regularly in our ceremonies, but usually with a variety of titles, such as Great Architect, or Grand Geometrician, or the Most High, depending what degree we're considering. God is also referred to in our symbols and indeed in many of the prayers. In particular, I've always loved the second degree prayer at the end, which goes along the lines of, "Let us remember that wherever we go, he is with us, and his all-seeing eye observes us. Yeah, that's quite a weighty responsibility, isn't it? And of course, other prayers are said, and everything we do within the lodge is done in the context of a belief in the Supreme Being. So, for example, as we open the lodge, the chaplain says, "Let us invoke the assistance of the great architect of the universe in all our undertakings. May our labours, thus begun in order, be conducted in peace and closed in harmony." So you can see why some people think that Freemasonry is a sort of religion. However, when we go on to look at the stories on which Freemasonry is based, they are, of course, based around the building of the Temple of King Solomon, which is a story from the Jewish tradition that's found in the Old Testament. But that's not a story that is unique to Christianity, and indeed any of the Abrahamic religions, that is Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, will see the significance of that particular story. And although the story of the temple appears in Jewish scriptures, it's not specifically linked with Judaism, and the story is interpreted in a way that is acceptable to all Masons of all walks of life. So when we refer to God within a Masonic ceremony, God is referred to in terms of religions that is acceptable to everyone and is not allied to any one religion. Indeed, some of my closest friends within Freemasonry have been of other religions, and actually it has been wonderful to meet on common ground. You must, of course, have a belief in a supreme being to be a Mason, but it is not a religion in itself, but it does encourage people to practice their own religion faithfully. And what I particularly like about it is the belief in the supreme being is not limited. And I like the way in which each one of us as Brother Masons is free to interpret the idea of the supreme being in terms of our own experience of that being and how we perceive that being in our lives. As a Christian, of course, and as a priest, I perceive God in a particular way, but that is not in any way forced upon my brother Masons through my work in Freemasonry. And so people are encouraged to respect religions all around the world. And it unites people of all faiths. And actually, although there's a lot of talk in the church these days about interfaith dialogue and how other faiths need to talk to each other, actually Masons have been doing it for years. So there's nothing new in that as far as Freemasonry is concerned. And indeed, I think that's a most wonderful thing that people of all faiths can find common ground in Masonry and indeed, in the right circumstances, have some dialogue about their different beliefs. One of the people I've met in Freemasonry across the years is a Sikh, and he and I have had some very fruitful discussions about our understanding of God or the Supreme Being when we have met. So, despite some people's perceptions that Freemasonry is religion, it most certainly is not. But it supports religions, and it supports all kinds of religion. And of course, if we're asked, well, what exactly is Freemasonry? Well, that's explained to us in the first degree. It's a peculiar system of morality, veiled in allegory, and illustrated by symbol. And although it's not of itself a religion, nonetheless there are various characteristics of Freemasonry that do in some way function as religions do. For example, in this last year, in this time of lockdown, many of us will have found it very difficult. I have been sustained by my personal faith. And in much the same way, I've also been sustained by the principle and tenets of craft Freemasonry. And that, of course, you may remember, picks up on the theme that I mentioned last month. So I hope that helps a bit. Anybody having difficulty with challenges over their personal faith and religious practice, I am more than happy to offer advice and explanation about Freemasonry, as indeed I have done on many occasions. So, back to the bike. Don't ride that anymore. Sadly, my biking days are over because of the hips. But there you go. It brings back some very happy memories. Thank you for listening. Speak to you again next month.